Pittsburgh Steelers fans, yeah, you know it. It is time once again for another episode of the Sunday Night Q&A. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. KT Smith is the host along with me this evening, and Jeremy Betz is not here. He is on assignment as we get ready to have the ultimate week. I call it Black Friday, a good Black Friday, not like Black Monday. But Kevin, this is when the shopping starts, and Christmas is still draft weekend. So I'm loving this.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. This is like, one of the reasons you and I are doing this show right now is because we normally record our Here We Go podcast on Sunday nights, airs on Mondays. And we're worried that by the time it airs, it'll be old news, man, that there's just going to be a flurry of stuff that breaks after midnight. By the time people wake up in the morning, could be kind of a whole new reality in Pittsburgh and elsewhere around the league. So great opportunity to kick it off right now.
Because things are already happening. So this is a special merger of Here We Go, the Steelers show. We're going to have aspects of that, and we're going to have aspects of all aspects of the Sunday Night Q&A. It's your show, so get those questions rolling, and we're going to answer them. But here's the thing. Baker Mayfield is about to sign a huge deal, and that was okay because he's a Buccaneer, so he could go ahead and sign already, right, Kevin?
Yeah, man. I mean, nothing prohibits you from re-signing. Nothing prohibits anybody who was cut from finding a new team. So obviously, yeah, action's already underway.
So the Russell Wilson saga has begun. And there's a lot of people still talking about that. Then some people saying, well, he left the building without a deal, so that means the deal's off. But he put a very interesting post up on, I don't know whether it was Instagram or Snap, or maybe it was just a tweet on social media. Did you see what I'm talking about here?
I mean, I've seen a bunch of stuff about how long he was in the building, how much time he and Arthur Smith spent together. Obviously seems like a really productive meeting, but I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly.
All right. So maybe he was just talking about his faith, but he just wrote Jesus gets all caps, the glory. So I don't know whether that was random, whether he was celebrating the signing of it. I don't know what that was, but it seemed like a celebration text in some manner.
I don't know, man. This is the ultimate sort of like trying to read between the lines time of year, because everybody's sort of putting out little smoke screens and nobody wants to exactly play their full hand. I mean, between the opening of free agency and the lead up to the draft, it's so hard to discern what anybody's real intentions are. I mean, I'll say this right now. I will be surprised if the Steelers sign Russell Wilson. I think that there's mutual interest, but I think Russell Wilson wants a little bit more of a guarantee that he's going to be the starter. And I think that maybe there's some other places where he can find that, which doesn't mean that like the door would be closed to him coming to Pittsburgh. And it doesn't mean that there's not genuine interest. I'd be willing to bet that after his experience in Denver with Sean Payton, and where the chemistry there just was not good, that he and Mike Tomlin probably really hit it off. And I'd be willing to bet that he loves a lot of what he heard from Arthur Smith, because he's a great fit, I think, for an Arthur Smith offense. But if the Steelers are basically saying to him, we're going to give you the chance to come in here and compete with Kenny Pickett for the job, I mean, I think that he might be able to go to some other places where they say, you're really going to be the guy that we look at as our starter. I think Vegas, where he's supposed to be heading next, will give him that opportunity. So I'll be surprised if the Steelers sign him.
And Thomas Eads did ask, do you think Russ will be a good fit for us? You just went ahead and covered that. So I wanted to bring that up. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, because the Vegas thing is something that something that's pretty huge. Now, somebody just mentioned, Steelers Reaper just said, guessing Russ goes to the Giants or the Raiders. I really don't think it's the Giants as much, because look at all that money they just shelled out on Daniel Jones. And I don't think that they're going to just a year after that contract that they're going to go ahead and quit that experience. Um, but I can see, I mean, it could be the same thing, pushing another guy. I think Vegas is a perfect fit right now. Um, with
I think Vegas is attractive for the opportunity, and B, just the chance to stick it to Peyton twice a year, man. I don't think that that's an insignificant factor in all of this. That relationship was so toxic, man. That went so bad that I think that if you're Russell Wilson, a really competitive guy, I mean, you look back on that and you say to yourself, boy, do I got a chance twice a year, man, to, vindicate myself against this team. And I, that would not be the only reason, obviously, but I wouldn't say that that it doesn't factor in at all.
So where do they go next at quarterback? Because you got to think that the Mason Rudolph signing is not going to happen, because Mason Rudolph was deemed to be fit number 1 for the Steelers. They all but said that we really want to do Mason Rudolph first, and then Russell Wilson is the plan A minus, I guess, right after Mason Rudolph. It seems that that's not going to happen now because they haven't announced anything yet. So I'm almost thinking, where do they go now if they don't do this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've all heard the names. I don't think that they're in on a Justin Fields trade. I still think Tannehill makes a lot of sense for them with his history between he and Arthur Smith. If they really want a competition, then they'll try hard to sign Rudolph, because Rudolph will really push Kenny Pickett for the starting job. If they bring in a guy like Tannehill and he actually wins the starting job, it won't be, I think, because Tannehill won it. I think everybody knows who Ryan Tannehill is at this point in his career. It'll be because just Kenny Pickett just showed that he just wasn't good enough. And I don't think the Steelers want that. So really the interesting question is this: how much of a competition do the Steelers really want? Do they want a genuine competition for that QB1 job? If that's the case, then they're going to push hard for Wilson, or they're going to try to get Rudolph back in the building. If they want Pickett to win the starting job, but maybe have a backup plan, a plan B, if he falls on his face, then I think that's like a Tannehill type signing. So it's really hard to answer any of these questions unless you're inside the building and you really know what their intentions are.
So there are a lot of great questions here. This is one that I know you can answer, because you're a student of all 32 teams. It's Reginald Rivers, and it's asking about who between the Steelers, Raiders, and Giants have the better offense for Russell to choose from.
That's a good question. I like Mike Kafka a lot. He's the new offensive coordinator in New York. He was with the Chiefs for the last 5 years, and I think the Chiefs, obviously, they do some unique things because of Patrick Mahomes, but I think that he's a guy who has learned over the years how to be really quarterback friendly. And Russell Wilson needs that. Russell Wilson's not the quarterback he was 6, 7, 8 years ago, man. He really struggles to throw into the middle of the field. He's got some of the same issues right now that Kenny Pickett has. And I think Kansas City figured out lots of different ways to help Patrick Mahomes. Now, they're a team that attacked the middle of the field well too, but largely because they had Travis Kelce. Anyway, long story short, I like their offense coordinator in New York. I think Vegas has got a really talented roster. You look at some of the receivers out there, and you look at what they like to do. I think that they're in pretty good shape as well. But really, man, I mean, if I'm Russell Wilson and I'm totally assessing it just on the fit, I think Pittsburgh's the best fit for him. I really do. I think he'd be great in Arthur Smith's offense. Great for what he is right now. Again, people think he's going to be 2015 Russell Wilson. They're going to be disappointed. But all that pocket movement, all that wide zone, bootleg, play action, all the stuff that Arthur Smith likes to do, that's Russell Wilson's game. He's a short passer, he's a play action passer, and he's a guy who throws deep. He's not a guy who takes 5-step drops and dissects the middle of the field. But I don't think that's necessarily what Arthur Smith would have him do. So if I'm Russell Wilson, yeah, I'm probably going to get a better opportunity elsewhere. But I'd have to think long and hard about what Pittsburgh does on offense, because I think it fits him well.
Very good. So we're gonna go back to this. I'm sure we're gonna go back to Russell Wilson. There's going to be a lot of questions coming in and out. So we're going to probably leave that open. There might be some more, but let's go ahead and go to the Steeler Wade show here. Do you think that we are out on Morris since we let him leave? We're talking Mitch Morse.
Probably. That's usually how it works. I don't know that for a fact, obviously, but usually when you get that free agent guy, in this case, he was cut. But when you get that guy in the building and you don't wrap him up and he goes elsewhere, very rarely do they ever come back. I think that was probably a dollar amount. That probably came down to him, probably feeling as though he would get an opportunity somewhere else to earn a bigger payday. So, I suspect that, the answer to that question is yes.
All right, here's another great question. We were talking about what Baker is getting. Robert Rohde asked, I saw two different dollar amounts for Baker, 3 for 115 million, for 50 million as a signing bonus, 3 for 100 million was the other. How many years before a quarterback gets 100 million per year?
Oh my God.
I don't think that's far off.
Look at those numbers. That's insane. We're talking about Baker Mayfield, right? Like 2 years ago, everybody was like, he's one of the biggest busts, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes down to Tampa Bay and he remakes his career. And now we're talking about Baker Mayfield as $100 million something quarterback. I mean, do the math, however you slice that, that's $30 to $40 million a year for Baker Mayfield, who, he had a great year. No doubt about it. Had a great year. Maybe this is who he's going to be for the next few years, but he's still, to me, a mid-level quarterback. So what are the top guys going to get? If the question is how many years before we see $100 million a year quarterback, I don't think it's that many. It's got to be within the next decade. What's the top right now? Do you know off the top of your head, Brian? Is it 50 something? Is it almost 60? I think it's almost 60.
I think it's almost 57's coming to mind. I think Is it Mahomes?
I don't know, but I think it's in the 50s. And so like think about these young guys coming out right now. These guys coming into the draft. If any of them turns into a Patrick Mahomes type quarterback, then by the time they hit their 4th, 5th year, they're going to be up for somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million a year. That's mind-boggling.
It's Burrow. It is Burrow at 55.
55, okay.
So that makes sense because he got it just last year.
Damn. That's insane, man. I want to go back in time and sort of retrain my life as a quarter. I can't. I'm 5'11". I can't do that. It's not gonna.
I see. I always thought you were actually bigger than that.
No. I did not win the genetic lottery, Brian.
That's awesome. So let's go ahead and I have this one up on the screen too, backing up basically what you were saying, because it is kind of amazing what's going on with a guy like Baker Mayfield and how he was basically left for dead and he was considered the ultimate bust. I think I like the guy a whole lot more now that he is on this team. You know what I'm saying? And not a Buccaneer or just the NFC. I think I just like NFC Baker more than anything.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of guy that where if he's on your team, you probably like him a lot. He's a passionate guy, fiery guy. But if he's obviously on the other team, you hate him for those same qualities. You're kind of like, shut up, Baker, go away. But that's a guy who's easy to root for if he's yours. Easy to root against if he's not. I see in the comments, Robert. I don't know how to say Robert's last name. Rode, maybe.
Rody.
Rody, is that what it is? He says in 1995 the salary cap was $37.1 million. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Look where we are now, right? You got individuals obviously making more than that.
Yeah, that's just fantastic to me. I really can't believe that. I am having some technical difficulties. Are you getting an echo on me, Kevin?
I'm not.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this one up and then fix the problem. It's the Steeler Wade show. Could Sam Darnold beat out Kenny?
Oh, God, I hope not. I really hope not. That's not good for Kenny because Sam Darnold's not getting better. I know he went out to San Francisco and he actually played some decent football. But again, you talk about quarterback-friendly systems and guys who really understand how to help a quarterback with the way they structure the offense, and Kyle Shanahan's excellent at that. But, again, I don't think that Sam Darnold is the kind of guy that you want to say he's going to be our long-term starter. I mean, if Sam Darnold can beat out Kenny, then Kenny Pickett is not at all a starting quarterback in the NFL, because I think we all know Sam Darnold right now is best suited as a backup. I wouldn't be disappointed if he was Pittsburgh's number 2. I think as a number 2, Sam Darnold's fine. But do you want Sam Darnold as your long-term number 1? And if he can beat out Kenny Pickett, what's that say about Kenny Pickett?
Let's look at the Steeler Wade show. With Mac Jones out, would New England be the next best fit for Mason?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. Yeah, New England, they got the number 3 pick overall. Are they going to pick a quarterback? Well, it certainly seems like it now that Mac Jones is out, unless they're going to work a deal for like a Kirk Cousins, which is not improbable. But if they do go with the rookie, if they take Drake May, if he's there at 3, or Jaden Daniels, then bringing in a guy like Rudolph would obviously be a great move, because I don't think that they're going to want Daniels or May to be a day 1 starter, or if they are going to be a day 1 starter, they at least want to bring in competition for them in the preseason. So no, that would not be shocking if Mason Rudolph wound up in New England.
All right. Yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, I'm really interested to see what's going on there, because I think that opens the door completely to bring in a brand new quarterback. So let's go ahead and look even more here. I feel that the front office and Tomlin are understanding that Cam, Minka, and TJ are getting older. Winning now is a priority, and projects and coddling QBs won't help them win in the immediate future. What do you think of that?
I think the Steelers, honestly, as far as if we're going to talk about them like winning now, right? Are the Steelers ready to win a Super Bowl right now? Then that means that they got to make a really heavy investment this offseason in free agency. And that would probably mean bringing in an established quarterback. Who do you see the Steelers being able to bring in right now who can win them a Super Bowl? I don't think that they can win a Super Bowl with Kenny Pickett in 2024. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think that they can win a Super Bowl in 2024 with a guy like Justin Fields coming over. Maybe Kirk Cousins, right? But what's that going to take to sign Kirk Cousins? I get the whole idea of win now, and that being the priority. But I think the Steelers are always trying to win, though. You can debate all you want whether or not they're doing enough to be Super Bowl contenders versus just extend Mike Tomlin's winning season streak. But I don't see them ever not thinking about being successful. The degree, though, to which they have to go to get a quarterback that can help them win the Super Bowl this year, that's going to be tricky. So, I think that that's really the question, right? How much are they willing to invest at that position right now?
Thanks for that comment, Aquatic Life. Tyler Longhurst, do you see the Steelers drafting a wide receiver between rounds 2 and 4 after releasing Robinson, or do they roll with CA3 out of the slot?
I will be stunned if they don't draft a wide receiver between rounds 2 and 4. The Steelers have not gone back-to-back seasons without drafting a wide receiver since 2003, 2004. That's the last time they went 2 years in a row without drafting a wide receiver. They did not draft one last year. And so history tells us they will draft one this year, and history also tells us that that's the sweet spot for wide receivers for the Steelers, rounds 2, 3, and 4. That's really where they like to select them. So, yes, I suspect that they will do so in this draft.
All right, let's go ahead with one more question before we go into the break, and it's Steelers Reaper. What position will be targeted and signed first in free agency?
That's a good question. I don't think it's offensive tackle. I think that the value of drafting an offensive tackle in the first or second round is much higher than the value of signing a guy in free agency, because the tackles who hit free agency, they either are going to be too expensive for the Steelers or just not worth it. They're not going to be guys that are going to be upgrades over Dan Moore. So I think the Steelers will draft a tackle, and then it comes down to, what are they prioritizing? Is that going to be a center? Is that going to be a wide receiver, a corner, an inside backer? I think all those positions are in play. I mean, this is a pipe dream, most likely. But, man, I would love to see the Steelers take a run at Patrick Queen, because they just have been missing that sideline to sideline 3-down linebacker ever since Ryan Shazier was lost. And, Patrick Queen, to me, man, you pair him with a Landon Roberts, and you have now solidified the middle of that defense for years to come. Both those guys still in their 20s and with a lot of football left in front of them. Maybe that's too much money for the Steelers. They might not be able to get that deal done. But personally, I would love to see it.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll be back right after this for the conclusion of the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A with a taste of, here we go, the Steelers show. We'll be back right after this. All right, we are back. Jeremy Betz is off tonight. I'm Bryan Anthony Davis, along with Kevin Smith. Having a little issues with my microphone tonight, so I do apologize. I'm just going to deal with the echo on my end as long as you're not getting it, Kevin.
No, man, you sound good to me. You
All
look
right.
good, Brian. As always, you sound good.
I got a new jersey.
Yeah,
should we talk about it?
Brian's rocking some Joey Porter Jr. here.
Yeah, I did the throwback. I love me the block numbers. I think they
I'm
need
going
to go
with the fans first gear here, man. Right?
I have one of those too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to break that out as well.
My Ocean City football, I got to try to talk up the
do that.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, if you go to steelcurtainnetwork.com, go ahead and check out what you can possibly get as far as SCN garb. We have that there. So let's go ahead and get back into it. So what we have going on here, we've got what we already talked about, the position. Do you see the Steelers signing Simmons, Poyer, or maybe Jamal Adams since he's younger? It's Vinny Egekun.
I saw the tweet from Simmons. I don't know if actually I take that back. I don't know if it was a tweet, but I saw the information that came out about Simmons, in which he was saying how much he would love to come to Pittsburgh to play with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Evidently, those guys are tight, and I mean that would be a heck of a duo. He's being able to solidify the safety position is huge, considering how much the Steelers love to run those 3 safety packages. And so obviously with Keanu Neal being cut, they're probably going to need a third guy to pair with Fitzpatrick. I just feel like it all comes down to money. I mean, obviously that's the big thing, right? Everybody's got a wish list. We can all talk about like, hey, do we want a D lineman? Do we want a backer? Do we want a safety? I want all that stuff, man. I want to be greedy. But at the same time, how much are the Steelers willing to spend? What are they doing at quarterback? Those are all going to be things that factor in. Thankfully, we've got Omar Khan, a guy who is brilliant at working the salary cap and always seems to be able to maneuver in a way that allows the Steelers to do the things they really want to do. So, I trust in him. But priority-wise, that's an interesting discussion, man. I mean, again, I really like investing at the linebacker position on defense. I saw somebody put here on the chat, Tommy Myers, it says, put on the chat there about getting guys up front to bolster the D line. Agreed. Totally agree. So, are there those guys out there right now that are worth the investment? That's an interesting question. I'll be very curious to see how the Steelers prioritize this.
Let's stick with Vinny here. Are the Steelers going to try and roll the dice with Trice at CB2 or draft another corner?
I don't know how you can. I don't think he's a 7th-round draft pick who did not play last year because of an injury. And there was really great stuff coming out from camp about him. Everybody was very optimistic and excited about him. And I think that is still something that is worthwhile. But to pencil him in as CB2 as a 7th-round pick who didn't play yet last year is just too risky. So I would suspect that the Steelers will both draft a corner and sign somebody in free agency.
What about a guy? I heard that the Steelers should probably stay away from Tre'Davious White, but do you bring in a guy like that, even though he's had injury issues, because he's at least a veteran presence when you know nothing about Corey Trice?
Maybe. I mean, he's got, the medicals will tell the story on White. He's got 2 ACLs. And for a guy he's not a big physical corner like Porter. He's a guy who relies more on his twitchiness and his quickness, his instincts, etc. If that knee doesn't come all the way back, then he's going to be a guy whose career will really suffer from it. I don't think Buffalo would have moved on from him if they felt like he was the player that he had been. So he'll be a buyer beware guy, I think, in free agency.
Thomas Riley asks, who do you see that the Steelers can bring in to help the defense from free agency? You've already mentioned a few guys. You would love to see a Patrick Queen, but who else?
Well, I think the safeties, that's an interesting conversation. Again, I think Justin Simmons is a wonderful football player. I think he'd be a really nice complement to Micah Fitzpatrick because Simmons is a really sound zone player. And Micah Fitzpatrick increasingly last year especially was used closer to the line of scrimmage. So you'd kind of have the back end guy. You've also got DeMonte Kazee there to be that center fielder if you want to get creative with your 3 safety packages. So, that's a name I think that's really worth exploring if you're the Steelers.
Afton Ford asked this question. How many truly great players get dismissed because they never won a chip?
Well, that's a good question. It's interesting. Somebody else put here on the chat earlier that great player. There's plenty of great players who never win a championship. There's way more players of note who don't win the championship than who do. So, right, do they get dismissed because of that? That's a really interesting question. I think at certain positions, yes, like at quarterback. I think quarterbacks elevate their status in terms of how they're remembered, their legacy, so to speak, by winning a Super Bowl. I think that at other positions, maybe not so much. Like nobody looks at Barry Sanders and says, oh, that guy wasn't great because he didn't win a Super Bowl. I mean, you look at Barry Sanders and you're like, the guy was a king. They say the same things about Bo Jackson and some of these other guys that were great players for a long time. So again, yeah, I think that it really has a lot to do with the position that you play.
All right, let's keep this going. With all the new players projected, how long do you think they adapt to the new coaches and coordinator?
There's a lot of prep, in the off season now. And I think one of the things that really helps is so many of these schemes are universal in terms of the X and O's. So like whether you're coming in to run, a new offense, so to speak, the thing that takes some adjustment is the terminology. It's not the schemes. Everybody's running inside zone, outside zone, the duo scheme, right? Everybody's running the same 5, 6, or 7 passing concepts, but the looks that you're doing them from and the terminology that you're using and how much freedom you're giving the quarterback to sort of check in and out of plays, etc., that usually defines the differences. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Man, you're running a 3-4, you're running a 4-3. Your sub packages are 2-4-5 or 4-2-5. It's personnel, but everybody's running the same stunts. And, they're just calling them different things and the same fronts and the same stunts. So I think a lot of that familiarity going from one, program to another helps people catch up. And then plus you got all the technology today. It's amazing for what technology allows players to do now. You get these phenomenal resources, right? Like Exodus in the NFL, like Huddle on my level, which just allows you to share everything under the sun, scheme-wise, video-wise, terminology-wise, so guys can study it unless you're Johnny Manziel and you never turn it on. I think everybody saw that in the Johnny Manziel documentary. He literally didn't have 1 second of film time on his iPad. But everybody's got an iPad with everything downloaded onto it, and you can study it 24/7. So I think it eases the curve for sure.
I want to thank everybody that is in here so far. Here's a name I haven't seen in a long time. Just me. Hey, since I don't do as many YouTube shows, it's nice to see some of these names that I haven't seen in a while. When we're just doing the audio only stuff, Kevin, it's hard to know who is hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So we got a question.
Hey, wait, let me shout out to Big G real quick. Sean Gurley up there, man.
Was Big G here? I didn't see him yet.
Big G, I saw your comments on my film room, man. I appreciated it. And I got to get you on the call sheet. Let's get on the call sheet and talk about some of this stuff, man. So I'm going to hit you up on our Slack channel. Appreciate you reaching out, man.
Big G, definitely one of my guys there. And Big G, I need to talk to you too. Give me a call. So everybody wants Big G's services. Ian Dunbar, will Kevin Dotson's post-Steelers success and new contract teach coaches that switching linemen to cover other weaknesses is not the way? And will they switch Broderick Jones now rather than waste him at left tackle?
Waste him at left tackle?
I'm guessing that meant to be right tackle.
I think so too, yeah. Because I think that, that left tackle is really where he's destined to play. And yes, I think they will switch him. And it is like Kevin Dotson's story is a really interesting one. I didn't really see enough of exactly what the Rams did with him, but if the Rams scheme, they're a big zone team, and so it was nice to see his success. But I think what happened in Los Angeles is Kevin Dotson was allowed to just sort of play to his strengths and be a lot more aggressive. As for Broderick Jones, though, yeah, man, I really will be shocked if they don't flop him over to left tackle, and that's where he'll live for the rest of his career.
Denny Owens Jr., what wide receivers are available in free agency?
A lot of talk about Tyler Boyd, right? I mean, Tyler Boyd seems to be the guy who, as the veteran slot guy, would make a lot of sense with Allen Robinson being released. I think that he's a guy he's a bigger receiver. One thing about Arthur Smith, man, he likes big personnel and big receivers. He based out of 12 and 22 personnel more than anybody in the NFL for a period over the last 5 years. I mean, and what does that mean? That means he's got 2 tight ends on the field, or he's got 2 running backs. He likes old school fullbacks. And the point of that is that there's only going to be 2 wide receivers on the field a lot of the time. And who are those 2 wide receivers going to be? I mean, are the Steelers going to move on from Deontay Johnson? That's a really interesting question. That's gathering some momentum as we head towards the opening of free agency. But long story short, man, whoever the Steelers bring in at wide receiver number 3, that guy's not going to get a ton of reps in an Arthur Smith offense. So it needs to be a veteran guy who's willing to accept his role. I think if Tyler Boyd accepts that role, he's probably a guy the Steelers will have their eyes on.
I'd be shocked if he does, but you never know.
Yeah. But if they move on from Deontay Johnson, then obviously that opens the door for, who knows, man. I mean, you could see an offense with George Pickens and Tyler Boyd at number 2 and Calvin Austin the 3rd and a draft pick there in the mix as the 3rd and 4th guys, understanding, of course, that you're going to have, lots of 2 tight end sets. I think the Steelers are in a market for another tight end as much as they are for another wide receiver.
So we already answered this question, but I did not mention his name, and I want to always mention the names. Joseph Mislajenovic. So thank you for your question there. Brian Mizwa asked, will we restructure anyone to free up more space?
I'm sure we will. I have no doubt about that. I think that's coming. I don't know who, but that's always the MO. I mean, the Steelers have done it for years and years and years. And, they've already done a nice job with some of these releases to free up space. And I think more's coming. I think, a lot of it depends on how big a splash are the Steelers expected to make. I mean, are they going to go after, like, for example, somebody earlier in the chat mentioned, hey, let's build from the front, the defensive front first to keep those offensive linemen off the linebackers. Well, are the Steelers going to go after Christian Wilkins? I mean, Christian Wilkins is a dude. I love Christian Wilkins, but what's that going to cost? And so if the Steelers are interested in making an aggressive play for like a Wilkins or for a Patrick Queen, then they're going to have to restructure some more contracts, no doubt about it.
All right, let's go ahead and look through. Todd Williams, it's not really a question. I just want to get your comments on this. If we're going to continue to run the Tampa 2, we better get an inside linebacker top priority. Thoughts?
I thought Cole Holcomb did a pretty good job with it last year, but obviously the injury is a concern. That you don't know how that was a bad knee injury that he suffered. You don't know how much that's going to affect him. Again, man, let me keep pounding the gavel, man, for Patrick Queen, because you want to run some Tampa 2, man. That's your guy. But you can do it out of sub packages. You out of that 3 safety look that the Steelers run. With the way that they drop Minkah Fitzpatrick and they'll drop him into that rat, so to speak, that a lot of teams play, or that robber role, and you can play cover 2 behind that, and it's like a de facto Tampa 2. So I mean, if they don't get an inside linebacker to do it, they can do it out of their 3 safety package. It's just not called Tampa 2, because by definition that involves the linebacker as that high hole guy. But the Steelers have done it out of 3 safety packages, so I could see that.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this one up. I might need a little help on it. I know you just mentioned Wilkins, but this is Big G. Curl CB Commanders, Wilkins DT Dolphins, and Baker. That's Baker, inside linebacker Dolphins. What do you think, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, Jerome Baker, that's a heck of an athlete too, man. There's a guy. I talked earlier about Patrick Queen getting a guy who can run sideline to sideline. Again, what do the Steelers have in Landon Roberts? They got a downhill thumper who takes on the run as well as anybody in the NFL, right? Now you look at what do you complement him with? You got to complement him with a sideline to sideline guy. And so, Jerome Baker's a guy that has done that in the league. He'd be a great signing as well. The Steelers need an off-ball backer for sure. And by off-ball, we mean, the guy that essentially plays the weak side and is a little bit more of a lateral player as opposed to a vertical plugger. So he love it, man. Let's pluck those Dolphins.
And I'm going to bring up Sean Gurley here. Correct the transition, says Big G. Correct the transition is the playbook verbiage and the player's ability to pick it up. Film study with verbiage works. Watch it, say it, do it. And hey, I don't know if you know this, Big G was a Division I tight end, if I'm not mistaken.
The Buckeyes, man. Big G was
no, he wasn't in the Buckeyes. He's a Buckeyes fan.
I thought Big G was in the Buckeyes. Big G, where'd you play, man?
He's an SEC guy.
He's an SEC guy?
Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas. Ooh,
Arkansas's SEC, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I believe I'm correct. I hope I'm not saying anything that I wasn't supposed to say, but
but to his point there, man, I mean, that's so much of you and I have talked about this, Brian. I had the opportunity this past year to work with Paul Gunther, who was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals and the Raiders for a long time, and he was he gave me the Raiders playbook that he used out in Vegas in 2020. And as I flipped through, first of all, it was thicker than an old school phone book. Some of the youngins on the chat here won't even remember what a phone book looked like. But I mean, this was about 400 pages long. And as I flipped through it, a lot of it was very similar stuff, like things that we even run on the high school level, things I ran when I was in college. And that's almost like universal stuff. But the terminology was so different, and the looks, the different ways that you got to this base stunt or this base front stem, whatever it might have been, was so many different ways to sort of get to the look that you wanted to implement. Like it's like on offense. You think about an offense and you say, hey, we're going to run power. We're going to run old school power, block down, kick out, wrap the guard, etc. Right? But now we're going to do it out of a 1-back set, a 2-back set, a no-back set with jet motion. We're going to trade the formation from the right side to the left side. We're going to go from 5 wides and move into a bunch, and we're going to run it out of that. It's incredible how diverse you can get in order to get to a simple concept. And I think as you go from one team to another, you got to relearn all the ways in which teams do that. So it's not the concept that you're learning over. It's the way that teams get to the concept, and that's where it can get tricky.
All right. William Caldwell says, hey, y'all, how real is the Deontay Johnson trade situation, and would you do it?
I'm sorry, I was laughing at Pittsburgh Toddy 86's comment there that said, hey, my mom once hit me in the head with a phone book. I deserved it.
I did not see that yet. I did not get that far down yet. That's awesome. Gosh, I would not want to get hit with what. I mean, those things were so thick, and
you prop doors open with them, man.
And it depends. If you were in a higher metro area, that thing was nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, you take. Let's give you an idea. I don't even know if some of these younger ones know what this is, but the best thing was the Wish book. JCPenney's were the Sears catalog. You put 2 or 3 of those together, and that's what the old school phone books were like.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Hey, to William Caldwell's question about the Deontay Johnson trade situation, I don't know how real it is, but I will say this. I don't see him as a great fit for Arthur Smith's offense. I think back to when Arthur Smith's offense was at its best in Tennessee, 2019, 2020. You look at his receivers there, A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. They were big, physical receivers. They blocked on the perimeter. You could create mismatches with them against smaller corners. He likes big personnel. He likes physical wide receivers. And, I mean, say what Deontay Johnson, great route runner, twitchy. Everybody knows his strengths, but he's not exactly shown that he's real willing to stick his nose in there and block and do some of the hard, gritty stuff. And so it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all if the Steelers thought that maybe they want to go in a different direction at wide receiver.
All right, this is not a question, but just a comment. DJ used to trade up and draft Rome Odunze is my unrealistic GM move. I'd love if it was a reality.
I think Rome Odunze will be gone, in the top 10, and so it'll make it impossible for the Steelers to do that. But I think that's the kind of receiver that they want in this offense. He's 6'2", and he's big and he's physical. And he can stretch the field. I mean, that's the prototype for what Arthur Smith is looking for sure.
All right, I got to bring this comment up because a lot of phone book comments. Robert Rohde, the old joke used to be short people sitting on a phone book to drive. That's true. I've seen it happen, actually.
My mother-in-law is like 4'11", and she could use a phone book or two, man, because there's times where I've seen her driving and like, can she see over the steering wheel? It worries me,
Big G confirms no Buckeyes and SEC guys, so we'll just call him the Razorback. How about that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah,
he was telling me
the best conference in college football for sure. I'm sure he won't argue with that.
He was telling me a great story. Like I said, I hope I'm not saying stuff I'm not supposed to say, but he was there at the time when they were winning the basketball, the NCAA basketball tournament. He was around that time. How cool would have that been?
Yeah.
What was it, 60 Minutes of Hell with Nolan Richardson?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, as a kid, I used to love Sports Illustrated because I loved the covers. And I'll never forget the Sports Illustrated cover with I think it was Sidney Moncrief of the Razorbacks, like flying through the air with his hands over his head, about to throw down a two-handed dunk. That was like an iconic Sports Illustrated cover, man, when I was a kid. So it's funny how you remember, man, those, like if you're a little bit older, you're in your 40s or 50s, you remember those Sports Illustrated covers. Like, I got the one of Hines Ward skipping across the goal line after he caught the wide receiver pass from Antoine Randall in Super Bowl 40. I got that one blown up, man. I had that one framed.
He was also, I believe he also made the cover if I'm not mistaken, doing the bird at the not giving the bird, but doing the mocking TO that November 11th game or November 7th game in 2004, Ben's rookie season, when they beat the two teams back to back that were undefeated, the Patriots and the Eagles. I was at that game, but I believe Hines made the cover of Sports Illustrated doing the flappy arms.
Yeah, man, they were great. Great iconic sort of sports memories. Somebody, Thomas Riley, on here wrote Steelers need a Hines Ward clone. Well,
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, wish we could find one of those.
And that was up there before you just mentioned Hines Ward.
Okay.
That's so that was an original thought. I love it. So let's go ahead and get on out of here. My gosh, Kevin, in another 12 hours, the phones are going to be ringing and you're going to see stuff leaking on Twitter. I mean, I know it doesn't, the tampering period doesn't officially start until noon, but I'm going to ask you your opinion. Is there tampering already?
Yes. Hell yeah, there is, man. Come on, man. You just got to be smart enough not to leave a paper trail, you know?
So there's still a lot of phone book talk. So I love it. But before we do that, there's something that we do. And I want to ask you to go ahead and check us out. Mondays at noon, the show drops. It's Here We Go, the Steelers show. It's Kevin and I. We've been doing it together since 2020. And it's just an absolute pleasure. It's a lot more Kevin and a lot less bad. And that's the way it should be, because the man is a clinic. And I say that, I know I'm flattering him. I don't have to say that because he's already my buddy. But, you know, I will just say that, man, I learn stuff every single week, just like I did tonight. So make sure you check it out. Something that Kevin, he mentioned the term tonight already. And if you didn't catch it, he mentioned that someone's a total dude. And we do something called Dude of the Week. So what I want to ask you to do real quick is explain dude and your version of dude. And let's go ahead, and we might have an interesting Dude of the Week.
Well, you know, I mean, the colloquial dude can be associated with Jeffrey Lebowski from The Big Lebowski, or slacker surfer culture. But the way I think it's used in football is to recognize a guy who has a presence about them, who plays with a certain level of physicality or confidence, or who commands the room, the huddle. You know, somebody with some both swag, but also with the ability to back it up. You know, when you say, like, when you're talking about football and you say that guy's a dude, I think that's one of the best compliments you can give, because you're saying, like, that guy's for real. That guy's a real football player. And so when we honor the Dude of the Week, it's usually like a guy that we feel has represented themselves in that fashion within the particular, the last week.
And so in the off season, it's tough to go ahead and give the Dude of the Week. We have been given posthumous Dude of the Weeks. Like just recently, we gave one to Andy Russell. We've been doing this from time to time. I want to do an interesting one this week. It's a former Steeler, but someone who got his due. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I gotta laugh because you'll know this. Jeff Spicoli, he was the dude. If you don't know Fast Times at Ridgemont High, check that out. Get that movie. Trust me. But it's a guy that's no longer a Steeler. Steelers traded him. Kevin Dotson. That dude got his due this week. And you got to clap your hands together. My question for you, Kevin, is would have Kevin Dotson been the guy we were if he wasn't traded, the guy we were talking about today, if they would have kept him as the guy that's getting a deal with someone else, or would have it just been a different story?
It's hard to know. That's a good question. Hard to know. Sometimes it's like you just got to find your way into the right fit. I mean, obviously the Steelers shuffled through a couple of O-line coaches Dotson's first couple of years. I mean, you know, sometimes it takes growing up too. You know, he was kind of in Mike Tomlin's doghouse a little bit for, you know, I don't think any of us know exactly why. Maybe it was work ethic. Maybe it was playbook habits, practice habits, whatever it might have been. But, you know, the light bulb hadn't gone on yet for him. And then, you get traded and it's probably like a slap in the face. Once you get traded, you realize like your career's on the line. You get traded once, you get to a new opportunity, you better take advantage of it because you get traded a second time and that's usually the end of the road for you. So I think maybe it's that combination of he grew up a little bit and then he got into a system or a scheme or around a line coach or a group of guys that was just a little bit better for him. And so, that it worked out, man. But, happy for him, obviously. I'm always proud and excited of young men who are living their dream in the NFL. It's such a great thing to see.
Absolutely is. So our dude of the week is Kevin Dotson. And hopefully we're going to have some really interesting dudes of the week. I'm calling it. I'm hoping that the dude of the week is once again Omar Khan, as he was last year. It's got to be. Right, Kevin?
I hope, man. I hope. I mean, he knocked it out of the park last year. If he does the same thing this year, Steelers are going to be in good shape.
All right. It's time for us to get on out of here. Make sure you check out Here We Go, the Steelers show every single Monday, dropping at noon, and all the other great shows. There's going to be a great Let's Ride tomorrow with Jeff Hartman as he gets ready for the start of the free agency period. You're going to have to check in for breaking news on the audio side as well. So make sure you're checking it out there. Everywhere you download your favorite podcast, we're going to be there. We're going to be there first. And hopefully, like we have with our sources lately, we're going to be right as well. And that's something that our percentage is actually really fantastic as far as what we're hearing. And we're going to pass on everything along to you. Kevin, any last thoughts?
No, man, just can't wait to get it going. And it's going to be a busy week for you and me and all the Steelers fans on here. Everybody that was on the chat tonight, man, appreciate you guys. And stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting week.
For KT Smith, I am Bryan Anthony Davis. You could call me bad. We ask you to do one thing. Keep your feet on the ground.
Keep reaching for those hypocycloids.